I want to talk about wig addiction. I don't know if anyone is talking about wig addiction at all. Maybe someone is somewhere on the internet. I haven't really even investigated to see if that's the case, but I'm going to definitely after I'm finished recording this. I'm going to check to see if there's a precedence made, and hopefully I'm not saying things that have already been said. Either way, just know that I'm not taking anybody else's information and regurgitating it. This is all stuff that I've been organically feeling throughout the years that I've been wearing wigs. And it's been something that's been troubling me for a long time. And I know I've talked about the expense of wearing wigs and how annoyed I get with the whole wig wearing process. But I don't know if I've ever really talked about the fact that I know I suffer wig addiction. And it's not just one thing, wig addiction. I feel like wig addiction comes in two forms. One is just being addicted to wearing wigs and not wanting to be seen without a wig. And then the other one is being addicted to buying wigs. And I am guilty of both. I have it bad, y'all. And I've even tried talking to therapists about it. But somehow, I don't know, I have ADHD, self-diagnosed ADHD, so I've never really gotten that deep into my therapist sessions to even get to that part of it. But yeah, and I think part of it, the reason why I don't really talk too much about it with my therapist is because my therapist doesn't wear wigs. And I've never met a therapist who has alopecia like me. I've never met someone who really could identify with me. And I know that your therapist doesn't necessarily have to go through what you're going through, but some of the feedback that I've gotten when I've spoken to therapists is just so obscure that I could tell that they just don't get me and my specific, unique problem that I bring to them, which is my alopecia. Usually that's the biggest thing in my life. But anyway, let's talk about this wig addiction thing because it's big, all right? And today I want to focus not so much on the wig addiction in that I feel like I don't want to be seen without the wig. We'll talk about that in another discussion. I don't even know if I'm ready to have that discussion yet. But let's talk more about the wig addiction, the spending addiction. That is something that I realized that I had about 5 or 6 years ago, when I walked into a wig salon and purchased almost $6,000 worth of wigs. And I just want y'all to be clear that this was a purchase of only 2 wigs. Okay, so for 2 wigs, I spent $6,000 on. And I remember researching long and hard and thinking long about this process and making the executive decision to purchase 2 wigs for $6,000. And before you ask, well, why did you need to buy 2 wigs? Why couldn't you just buy 1? If you are a bald girl, I think you know why you need more than 1 wig. Even now, I'm traveling, I'm wearing a wig, and I have this other wig in my bag, right? So I wore both of these wigs on this trip, and I was only here for, 5 days? So in 5 days, I wore 2 wigs. So there you have it. That's why I buy 2 wigs at a time most of the time. I like to have at least 2 or 3 wigs in rotation at most times. And I want them to be nice wigs. And I didn't have this problem all of my life, by the way. I've been wearing wigs since I was 12 years old, okay? And there was a time when I only got maybe 1 or 2 wigs a year, and that's all I wore. Of course, that was when I was, was a child and I was using my parents' money. But when I started making my own money, yes, I did start spending a lot more money on wigs, and I started rotating wigs a lot more. But it wasn't really until I went blonde, specifically in that moment that I went blonde, that I started having this wig shopping and spending addiction that got completely out of hand. That took me to the point where I was spending in one day, in 2 hours, I had spent $6,000 on 2 wigs. And the worst part about it was I did not even like the wigs. I mean, I loved them in the moment, while I was at the store and I was trying them on, and while I had 2 different wig stylists in my ear convincing me that they were so beautiful. And don't get me wrong, they really were beautiful wigs, but just because a wig is beautiful doesn't mean it's going to look beautiful on you. Do you know what I'm saying? I think you know that. Wig is something that is made out of like 10,000 strands of hair that need to behave in a certain way, and they need to behave in a certain way and according to the wearer. It has to look good on the wearer. So I remember taking the wig home and not really being able to style it in a way that looked natural enough to me, and I never felt 100% confident in either one of the two wigs. I bought one. It was a longer one that probably was not quite this long, just a little bit past the shoulder. That's the one that got the most wear. And I also bought a bob that was a little past chin length, and it was like really edgy. And I thought, okay, this is a nice, going out look for when I want to look, spunky and funky. And that one got very little wear. In fact, I remember coming to a point where I hated that wig, like I hated it. So literally within 2 weeks after purchasing those two wigs that cost $6,000, I was out buying another wig again. And it was probably a high-end synthetic one like what I'm wearing right now. By the way, what I'm wearing is a high-end synthetic called Zara that I manipulated by adding some human hair wefts to. So for that reason, it might look a little different than what the Zara wig typically looks like, and it lasts a little longer. And behaves a little differently. Like you'll notice that it moves in a way that the Zara wig probably wouldn't move because there's that human hair wefted inside of it. But anyway, I digress. I'm saying all this to say that I didn't even like the wig that much, and I ended up spending 2 weeks later, maybe less. It could have been less because I'm sure that I was immediately, as I was wearing the wigs, starting to look for new wigs. And this process, I don't know how to really get out of this spending habit. Of course, I did catch myself. I no longer spend $3,000 per wig. That's what I ended up spending on those wigs. I think I got the first one, which was the longer one, for $4,000, and then the second one was supposed to be $3,000, so it would have cost $7,000. But they were like, well, since you bought the first one, we'll take $1,000 off. And I felt vindicated in buying in that second purchase because I got that $1,000 off, and I was like, oh, I need two wigs anyway, so I might as well go ahead and do it. And I took out my credit card, and it took me a whole year to pay it back, honestly. So yeah, I regret it. But the thing, what I really want to say about it is that the wig spending habit is so hard to break because it's the wig that determines it's the wig that determines what you're going to do next, right? Like you could say to yourself, okay, I'm only going to spend $300 on wigs, right? And then you get a wig, and if the wig doesn't behave properly, if it doesn't look good on you, what are you supposed to do except buy another wig? I guess I haven't always had this problem. Like I said, when I was wearing dark hair, I didn't have this issue. Blonde hair, which is something that I started to wear as I started getting older. I'm now 50 years old. And I realized that I had to lighten up my hair because the dark hair was looking hard and harsh against my skin. But blonde wigs, y'all, blonde human hair is so fragile. It's not typically naturally blonde. It's bleached hair that has typically undergone a lot of processing, and most times during the wig processing and the bleaching, the hair gets damaged. The gag is that once it's damaged, most of these wig companies will sell you the wig anyway. They find ways to quick fix the wig, make it look really nice, for the time being. But once you purchase the wig and you take it home and you wear it for a few hours, you quickly realize that this hair is not exactly what was all cracked up to be. And if you're anything like me, then you don't just throw the towel in. You try stuff, right? You try conditioning it, giving it a wash, giving it a condition. By this time, you've already cut off the lace, so you voided the warranty, right? So you can't return it anymore. Now you're washing it, you're conditioning it, you're using high-end luxury conditioners. You might even give it like a silk treatment or something of that nature, you know what I mean? All kinds of things to get the wig to look right again, only to realize that the wig it's just not up to snuff, and it's gonna at some point annoy you, embarrass you, start matting up in the back. And if you do have the means to buy another wig, chances are you're going to buy another wig. That's what I do. You know, and when I say if you have the means, I mean like if you have a credit card, you might use the credit card. You might max out your credit card buying wigs. And this is where the cycle starts and doesn't really end. Because then you're made to have to continually shop around until you find something good, unless maybe someone tells you of a brand that they know of that sells really good blonde wigs, right? Because if someone tells you, oh, I know a company that sells really good wigs, if they're not speaking specifically on blonde wigs, then they don't have the same issue that you do, and they're not going to understand the uniqueness of blonde wigs, and they will have never experienced the same drama with a wig that you do when you get your blonde wig. So I've had friends all the time tell me things like, "Oh, go to this brand or go to that brand. That's where I get all my wigs." But these people wear natural black wigs. Of course, they're not having the same problem. Natural black wigs have not undergone the same kind of processing. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep or lost in discussing the scientifics behind it. We've already spent about 5 minutes discussing that, and that's enough. So really what I want to talk about is the fact that it's the wig that determines how long this wig is going to last, right? What are the strategies that I've been using lately? And this was probably the best strategy that I've ever used, was setting a limit of, I believe it was $240 a month on wigs. And what I would do is I would buy my Zara wig. I got to know a specific wig from a specific brand that I trusted. I got to know the wig, and that's the same wig that I bought over and over and over again. And I did that probably for about 3 or 4 years. And that was this wig. It was the Zara wig by John Renault. And I loved it, and I loved it so much. I continued doing it, and I was happy that way. I was able to stay within budget. So that's how I fixed the problem. Was I found one wig, got to know it, and it was a synthetic wig. And why I'm mentioning synthetic wigs in particular is because synthetic wigs, if you're getting them from the same brand, typically you're going to get the same product over and over and over again. So there's no surprises, right? It's not like human hair where, you're getting a completely different person's head of hair. So you're going to have to learn different techniques for how it behaves. You know what I mean? Like that. You won't have to do that. With synthetic hair, you know what you're getting. You get the same piece over and over again. And that's what I loved about the familiarity of getting to know the Zara wig. And I did that for like 3 years, $240 a month. If I wanted a different look somewhere in between, I would just get myself like one of those budget wigs from Tressalure, or I said Tressalure, Outre, and the other one is Sensational. Those are my 3 favorite budget brands, and from them I can always get like a $40 or $50 wig, and they always look nice and they're fun, right? But they only last like a week long. If you're like me, I don't know. I've heard people get like full months out of them. I am never happy with a wig after a week. Not a budget friendly wig, y'all. So after about a week to 10 days, that wig is in the trash, and I'm back wearing my Zara wig again. So this worked out for me. So I would say if I had to actually total how much I spent per month on wig during that time, I would say it was probably about $260 a month, and I was comfortable at that price point. But then I started getting bored with my Zara wig. Not bored enough though, because clearly I'm still wearing it, right? This is like my go-to wig. It's like a bowl of oatmeal. It's just so familiar. No matter what's going on, I always go back to it. So for a time, I had sworn off human hair wigs, only wore synthetic wigs, this wig in particular. And then I started getting bored. Like I realized, like after looking at video after video, TikTok after TikTok, all these beautiful blonde wigs that were constantly being pushed in my face on social media, I just caved and I decided, you know what, let me buy a good blonde human hair wig. So I went and I started purchasing these wigs, and I went through about 3 wigs before I realized, okay, these wigs are shit. I don't want these wigs anymore. They were locally sourced wigs. I found them at various places nearby. I didn't want to get anything online because I wanted to touch and feel it. But as it turned out, touching it and feeling it didn't always solve the trick, When you get it home, you wear it for a few days and you realize all the things that are wrong with it. You don't usually figure those things out until you've worn it for a time. And I would say during that little transition point where I was transitioning from synthetic hair to human hair, I probably spent about Not too much money because I wasn't spending a lot of money on the wigs. Perhaps if I had done so originally, I would have had a better outcome. I'm not sure. Money is not always the answer. But I think I spent like $600, $500 or $600 on those wigs. Didn't keep any of them. I did keep, that's a lie actually. I kept two of them and I do wear them from time to time. And I'll show you them when I'm wearing them. But those are the only two blonde wigs that actually stood out. And then I stumbled across a recommended human hair retailer that I went to, and she sold me this wig, which is a really, really good wig. And I'm so glad I found her. This wig cost me about $500 only, and that's a really, really good price considering, because I was on the verge of spending about $2,200 on a John Renault human hair piece, because I know John Renault and I know this Blake wig that they sell. I've owned it before, so I trust it. But I'll be honest, when I did have the Blake wig before, I wasn't completely happy with it. I found myself constantly picking at the hairline and at the parting space because it was too dense in areas, and the hairline wasn't exactly as realistic looking as I wanted it to be. And I found myself doing that so much that I kind of balded the wig. Has anyone ever done that? That's a thing too. So yeah, I think I'm just saying this all to say, not to say that I have figured this whole thing out, but I just want you to be aware of it, because I think that if you're not aware of it, you won't even realize how much you're spending, because a lot of it is emotional spending. You know, you have to have hair. We're bald-headed women, and if we wear wigs, then we have to have wigs, and we have to buy them quite often. So it's hard to say, especially when you're in hair transition, how much you're going to spend from month to month on each wig. But budgeting is important, because you don't want to end up in the poorhouse. You don't want wigs to be the reason why you can't move up out of your neighborhood and into a better area, or why your life financially is just not where you want it to be, because you're spending tens of thousands of dollars per year on wigs. And I just explained to you that that's a thing. So we're going to talk more about this throughout the months to come, because I never stop thinking about this, honestly. But for now, I just wanted to put in your ear and see what you guys think about it. And if you have any advice, I would love to hear it. I have heard people say things like they get one wig a year and that's it. And I don't even know if I want that for myself. I've never met a wig that I like that much. Anyway, leave your thoughts in the comments and questions, and I love to hear from you. Okay, talk again soon. Peace.